but now coming into it and like thinking of it with like utility and everything like that, I'm really excited for the future of Midwest Misfit and being able to have, digital creations of my garments and then following with physical creations. I think that's going to be, I'm so like, I can't even like contain my excitement about it. I get smiles all over my face every time I talk about it.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of NewForum. We're always excited to bring you awesome creators, founders, visionaries, and developers on our podcast. NewForum provides informative, educative, and human-centered conversations on topics about Web3, crypto, NFTs, DAO, DeFi, and the Metaverse in order to ensure the conscious and ethical growth of a new web, embedding the values of care, freedom, and creativity. And on today's episode, we have an incredible visionary and founder who tells us to be a misfit in a world of normies. MIDWEST is a self-taught fashion designer and creator for KnownOrigin NFT Marketplace and digital fashion brand MIDWEST MISFIT, a digital manifestation of the bottleneck felt by every creator and innovator who grew up in environments that never synchronized with their sense of beauty and art, yet felt there was a whole other world ahead. Could this world be Web3 and the Metaverse? Stay with us on this episode of NewForum to hear MIDWEST share more about their experience as a Web3 fashion designer, designing for the Metaverse. And also we will discuss the current state and the future of digital fashion and how it impacts the fashion industry and our environment in the long run. Hey MIDWEST, we're quite honored you could join us today.
I'm pretty excited too. It's going to be really good. I'm excited for it.
Amazing. So maybe we can begin with you telling us about your incredible story as a self-taught fashion designer and how you found your foot in Web3 and got hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started probably back around, well, not probably because I know it did, but it started around 2015. And I was kind of making a mess everywhere in my studio and was always just tired of cleaning up this and that. And I was just like, well, there's got to be a little bit easier way to do this, and it would be easier to share it, on social networks and stuff like that. So I got into digital art. I had just drawing on I had a Samsung Note 5 at the time. And when I was younger, I played with GIMP before, which is like the open source software similar to Photoshop. And so that was the only knowledge of like any of a digital background I had. So I was like, oh, well, let me go ahead and just work with this. So I had my Note 5. I had this app called like Painter. I think it was just called Painter. And I would just draw on my little Note 5 in my studio for like hours on end during the day. And then I'd go wait at my tables at night and come home and have my couple hours of cool down time and go to bed. And then a couple of years of doing that, I wanted to progress. So I had downloaded Blender because I don't know, I don't even remember how I came across it. I had searched something like how Disney animated their videos or something like that, like what softwares to use. And so I was led to Blender, downloaded Blender, and I created this little bitty tiny like 10-second animation. It was a blue and green die or a blue and purple dice just rolling, two of them just rolling like on this infinite background. And that was the only thing I'd ever made. And then I kind of was like, okay, well, that took days just to render that one video. So maybe I got to go back to the digital drawing for a little bit and maybe pick up on 3D later on down the road. But August of that year of 2017, I had moved out to Virginia to be with my fiance. And he was just like, well, how about you try this program? It's a little bit beefier than Blender was at the time. And I was like, okay. And definitely maybe quite a bit less detail oriented, as in like the amount of things that it can do, because Blender sometimes a little overwhelming getting in there and seeing everything. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I got into Cinema 4D, was watching a bunch of grayscale gorilla tutorials and pretty much taught myself everything off of the grayscale gorilla tutorials. And then after I learned all of the things I learned from them, I kind of just started going in, messing around on my own. I then decided that instead of just creating small little audio visuals of like these spheres just bouncing around and everything, I wanted people, because I was like growing up, like The Sims was one of my favorite video games. So I was like, okay, this would be cool if I could get people in these pictures or in these renders and then just kind of like take it off from there. So I downloaded Daz, but I wasn't too happy with how their garments that you could download off their website and stuff fit to the model. They were kind of like, you could see how they were separated from the skin a little bit, and they're kind of blocky when you'd move, or like the polygons wouldn't flow or anything like that. So I just kind of like worked at that for a while, and then decided, I was like, well, there's got to be something out there that can do this, because there's all these video game companies doing it. So I did some looking and came across Marvelous and Clo. So I was like, okay, well, Marvelous first. It was just like, wow, it was so much easier than going in and trying to model a garment polygon by polygon in a 3D modeling software. And the garments look so much better than they did coming out of Daz, with like the separation from the body and such like that. So I was able to get in there and start designing the clothes. Then my next hurdle was and this was back, in like 2018, 2019 by this time. So there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge online about how to like get it from Marvelous to Cinema 4D or anything like that. So I had downloaded this like plugin for Cinema 4D, and then my computer got like wiped. I had to wipe my computer, do like a whole reset. So I lost everything. So I had lost that program, but I still continued working in Marvelous. So here I am, and I'm just like making all these garments. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, because I was just like, well, these garments right now, they only exist physically. Or they only exist digitally. So I don't necessarily have to have some physical constraint on the garment. So the patterns were like kind of like off the wall, like they didn't really fit or anything like that. But then I was just like, well, does it even really matter if they fit? Because I like how they look just like that. Like maybe they're designed that way for a reason. And then I just kept going, was like making my own little world, do like my own renders and everything. And then I got this helmet put on my little dude man, and then it all just kind of took off from there. I received an email the summer of 2020. I'd received an email from Charlie Cohen, and I was so excited. It was the first time I had been back home to the Midwest in about 3 years. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like everyone's going to think this is so cool. Well, no one really knew an idea what I was talking about. I had heard of the Metaverse, but didn't necessarily know exactly what all it entailed. So then after I talked to Charlie for a little bit, I came across an email from KnownOrigin. I had gotten an invitation to be an artist on there. So I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and do it. So I had this invitation and didn't really do much with it for a little bit, because I was like, oh gosh, that's kind of scary. Like, I don't know, like being out in the Midwest in a little big town, like everything's so much bigger than yourself always looks like, kind of intimidating. It's like, oh, that's stuff you see on TV. Like, that's not for me. That's not for me. So I kind of just like didn't really like jump on it right then and there. And then I remember one day I was like doing my morning routine, getting my coffee, kind of scrolling through the news, looking at what's going on in the world, checking Twitter a little bit. And I saw that people had like sold some NFT for like some amount of money. And I was like, what's going on? Like, so I was like, okay, so now I really need to pay attention to like this KnownOrigin, because if he's doing this is going to start like a whole, like so many other people follow him that they were going to obviously start looking into it too. So I was like, oh, well, dang, I really need to jump on this. So I had got back in contact with KnownOrigin and applied and got accepted. And then I had just been creating garments and putting them up. I didn't really have much utility behind them at the beginning, because it was all kind of like new. I was probably one of those people that was just like creating things and minting them, but then just like didn't really think of the afterthought. I was just like, oh my gosh, my art can get out there. That's so cool. But now coming into it and like thinking of it with like utility and everything like that, I'm really excited for the future of Midwest Misfit and being able to have digital creations of my garments and then following with physical creations. I think that's going to be, I'm so like, I can't even like contain my excitement about it. I get smiles all over my face every time I talk about it. It's so exciting. It's like everything I've ever wanted to build. Whenever I started out doing just the digital illustrations on my phone, I had tried to start like a mini like drop shipping company through Shopify, but it got between like, just to break it down, I was waiting tables and I'm trying to start this Shopify and drop shipping company. And it was just like overwhelming me. Like I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep with demand and stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. But now that, I've got a little bit more years under my belt, quite a bit more knowledge, quite a bit more determination and gumph, like I'm ready to go for it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'm also curious to know more about your digital designs, your inspirations, influences, and target audience. And why do you choose that audience?
Yeah, so my digital designs they play very closely into my inspirations. I'm really inspired by tech. I really enjoy tech. I really enjoy celebrity culture. When I was younger, most 12-year-olds are watching cartoons on Saturday morning, but lo and behold, here come my mom with her cup of coffee and I'd be turning the cartoons off and turning on E-News. So I wasn't your typical kid when it came to like their experiences that they would like or whatever. But another big part that plays into my inspiration for my work is I'm really into mysticism and I guess you would say like occultism to some degree, things like the golden ratio and just all these, I guess you would call them like quote unquote coincidences or just like signs from the angels or whatever you'd call them. That I've always got something going on around me where I'm just like, oh, well, that ties back to that or that ties back to that. And so a lot of my work comes from just like sitting and pondering on stuff like that. I've got a collection on KnownOrigin, which is based off the archetypes. They were like one of the collections that like I really first started off with was I went and just like started reading about all these different archetypes that were thought of by Carl Jung. And I think that, I think we each have like a specific archetype that maybe we resonate with the most, but when it comes all to it, I think we all kind of have a little bit of all of the archetypes within us. And so it's a balance almost. I posted something on Twitter the other day and they were two of the same setups, same shots, just different props around them. And it said, you must have balance. So just as you must balance your light, you must also balance your shadow. And a lot of play on stuff like that. Like, I've got a garment here where it's the magician and he's wearing a harness and a pair of short shorts and then like a little kilt type cape looking thing. And then, okay, so the light side is you get to be who you want to be in the metaverse. The shadow side is you could be a football player on an NFL team and that's exactly what you want to wear, but you can't wear that in real life, obviously. You would get criticized, you'd get picked on, you'd get dragged through the media. So that's where I get my inspiration, just taking things and just doing a little different and a little in your face about it too, I guess.
Would you say you have a target audience? Is there a specific audience that are like, patronizing the work that you do specifically, or what would you say?
I would say that my target audience first started out as misfits in the Midwest, because I know that I'm not the only person that feels this way here. I know so many people of so many different age brackets that are like, okay, well, I really want to share with you this deep and personal experience, but I can't just come out and say it with anybody. And so there's so many instances, so many times I've talked to so many different people and they have all these like things that has happened in their lives that are just like, no, I got to be quiet about that because that's not how it is in the Midwest. The Midwest is very hush hush. Don't talk about it. Just let things be as they are. That's it. There's no questions, no nothing. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. But that's not the way things are working. And the target audience started out as misfits in the Midwest because there are plenty of those here. And, you know, if they could afford it and they had the means, they might move. A lot of them, I don't even know if they would, because like they stay true to where they came from and such like that. But with time coming and changing so fast, I think people are realizing that no one's got time for that silly crap anymore. No one's got time to pretend to be somewhere they're not. It's kind of not a do or die moment, but it almost feels like it with how just things are going anymore. But then my target audience kind of opened up. I was like, well, this isn't even just the Midwest. This is, oh my gosh, so many places. There is just everywhere. People can't be who they want to be because they've got to live up to somebody else's expectations, or they've got to put on this persona because like this is what they want, or this is what they want, or well, my mom raised me to do it this way or this way, so now I gotta do it this way. Well, no, not really. You can do it this way and get the same results. So it's just this, yeah, I guess my target audience, a bunch of misfits running around.
That's really powerful, and I'm glad that you have created like a safe space through your work, you know, for people to, you know, feel at home and be able to express themselves. And you know, speaking about that, I'm also curious to know like what has been your experience with fashion NFTs, because it's very connected to you know, you spoke about KnownOrigin, right? So I'm curious to know what that experience has been for you.
For me so far, the experience has been really, at first was a little challenging, but it warmed up over time. It got easier and easier, or not. I wouldn't necessarily say easy because I don't think there's anything easy in Web3. But I think I've met a great group of people within digital fashion and NFTs. I've met a really phenomenal group, and I'm very happy that I've met them. My experience starting out was a little rough because I was just minting one-on-one stills, and so I never really put much into the practicality of like, okay, one-on-one stills also with the physical garment. So now I'm looking into, you know, producing these physical garments. I've been talking to a couple tailors, a couple seamstresses, being like, okay, what can we do with this? How would you want to work this? Is this possible to do with this? Can you get this to do this way? Like just a bunch of different things. So it's kind of, I don't feel negative towards it. I feel positive. I know that it's going to go to great places. It's all about, in all honesty, digital fashion is going to be all about utility. So the NFTs, I think, with the utility are what's going to go big, which is, and that goes back into some of the things I'm working on with like within Unreal right now, and the Charlie Cohen Restless project and such like that as well.
Digital fashion is kind of new, you know, especially to people who are still in this traditional fashion mindset, right? It takes, or it's going to take quite a mental shift to, you know, to adopt or to accept this. And so I'm curious to know, like, maybe for someone who might come across this episode and is wondering, like, what the heck is digital fashion? And how would you describe digital fashion? Do you think people are buying digital clothes because it's a thing now, like it's a thing now, or there's a greater purpose? And also, do you think it can replace fast fashion?
So first is, what is digital fashion? Well, I don't want to be the one to put an exact definition onto it, because I think it could almost really mean anything as long as it's tied into a digital realm or digital, like a metaverse. I feel like that could be that, because you could have a purse or hat, and then instead of an accessory, would that still be considered fashion or not fashion? But what makes it digital, I think, is simply the fact that there's that digital aspect to it. Now, what does it mean as how do I word this? Would a garment that you buy and then you can then scan a QR code to have a digital version of it, would that be the only concept of like a digital fashion, or would there be a way that you could do something like go into the store and like when you would be able to buy like an iTunes gift card, could you do something similar like that? You just buy like the little gift card, and then you can take that to whatever metaverse you're in, and there's that gift card for your garment or anything like that. I think though, and my strong belief is that digital fashion does need to have some digital aspect to it. It could be even like, I guess you could even consider a physical garment that has technology within it could also be digital garments. So you could have a garment with LED lighting to accentuate, like certain features. Would that consider digital clothing then also? So I think it's kind of I don't really want to say it's a loose term, but I feel like there's a lot of things that it encompasses that I think will still take a little bit of time for everyone to get down to the nitty gritty and figure out like, okay, this is digital fashion, this isn't digital fashion, this is digital fashion, borderline maybe strictly metaverse fashion, or is metaverse fashion even a thing? Is that the same as digital fashion? So there's still like a lot of questions I feel like to get down into the nitty gritty, but that is my overall encompassing of digital fashion, I guess you would say.
Yeah. I think that it makes sense because, like you said, it's still new, it's still being shaped. Like you are part of the people shaping this and defining this thing called digital fashion, right? But it's like this concept of digitizing fashion, where like initially when you're talking about how you go into it in the first place was like even space, and not having to worry about like the material and all these things. It's also quite convenient, and you can just like sit in front of your computer and have the software and create and just like really go creative and wild with your ideas. And so like speaking of this like digital fashion in the metaverse, I think that most people in the space kind of understand at least what that means, right, in connection with like NFTs and whatnot. Do you think that, or like when we think about like filters and yeah, like using filters and all of that, do you think that it's become a thing now? Like it's just people are like just buying it because it's a thing now, or I guess is there a greater purpose in your opinion, and could it replace fast fashion?
So one role I like to do is I like to, be my decentralized Midwest misfit self. And then I like to be like my IRL, enjoys time with like their family, their grandparents and stuff like that. And so I've been I don't want to say that I've been like studying them or anything like that, but I've been trying to, kind of like pick their brains about, well, how do you feel about something like this? Or how do you feel about something like this? And just kind of getting the standard grasp, because out here in the Midwest, I think that it's going to take, it could take a little bit more work to get it off the ground in the Midwest for sure. Because you said like the AR filters and stuff like that. Like when I describe it to my aunt, that's like well, almost anyone out here, that's the first thing I explain to them is it's, okay, think of an AR filter, but being able to have a garment that you've purchased, and then think of being able to take that garment into like maybe your favorite video game. And they're like, okay, I see what you're saying now. Whether or not they fully grasp that in their head, like on what all they could be able to do with these garments in the future, I don't know if that's really grasped in their head. But I know from my perspective, there are certain parts of the world where I think fast fashion will still, I don't want to say thrive, but I think it will still have a impact. I think we saw a really fast rise of fast fashion, and I don't think the fall of it will be necessarily as fast as the rise, but I think the more digitized just society gets in general, the more people out in the Midwest will start to look at that. And I could be totally wrong on that too, because a lot of people here I'm seeing lately have started getting like everyone, they're not like fans of like electric cars or anything like that. But I am starting to see that everyone's getting like electric lawnmowers, electric weed eaters, electric leaf blowers, and all these things. So I think it's kind of like a little dance in my generation, because I am between the age of 25 and 35. It is a lot different than say like my parents or my grandparents' generation, as to where my mom, she's got like a few tech items, like she's got an Alexa. I mean, who doesn't have an Alexa in their house? but then and she's got, you know, like security cameras, all this stuff. But then my grandparents are a little bit different. They've got an Alexa, but they plug her in half the time, don't have her plugged in half the time, or we all know that situation. And then there's like, I have cousins and friends, you know, that are between the ages of 18 and 25. And I can already see the gap just between my generation and their generation. So I don't know how it is. I feel like they're so far ahead from the generation that I came from, because they just, I don't know, it blows my mind sometimes. It's like, dang, these kids are really smart. So I think that they will be able to grasp the digital fashion quite a bit better than maybe people in my generation or older generations, because they've always had that tech in their life. Maybe not the tech we have today, but they've been around tech a lot longer than we have. So they can figure out, sometimes, I mean, they can even figure out things faster than I can. So that gets a little frustrating sometimes, you know. But I think that fast fashion played its role. I think that it's going to start merging in with digital fashion. Eventually, I do see fast fashion maybe not being as prominent as it is now. Because I mean, we still need garments to wear in real life, whether or not we need to be mass producing these garments. I'm not entirely sure, because I know that you can see clothes that get donated to like a Goodwill. I mean, if you look at some of the countries over in Africa, they've got mounds and mounds, literally. So my mind is still boggled from the images that I saw of just these piles of clothes sitting and rotting in Africa. And it's just, why do we need to produce such excess waste of things that aren't even going to be used? I mean, and then, well, we don't want to keep them here in this country, you know, so, well, we'll just ship them off somewhere else. I mean, like, I don't think that's very fair either. In all respect, maybe the fast fashion company should be taking it and recycling them somehow into some other form or something. I mean, you can make rugs, you can make bedding, you can make so many things out of them.
No, that's, I mean, your last point definitely stood out for me, because I grew up in Ghana, and I actually saw this, you know, I saw that they would bring these like huge, they used to call them bales or whatever, like these huge, gigantic, you know, I'm not even sure to call if it's a bag or whatever, with clothes, you know, from overseas. And you know, the masses would, you know, buy a few, and then the rest of them, like you said, they're just like, they end up in the land fields, and obviously it's not good for the environment. But I think that's like you said, you know, there's definitely a possibility for the digitization of fashion to kind of slow the fast fashion, you know what I mean? Because the more people see that the more it becomes more accessible, because right now there aren't really, you know, the softwares are still developing in terms of allowing people to really express themselves, or maybe wear like a digital design NFT that maybe they purchased or something, you know, like, but I think eventually when you can just wear your digital outfit on Instagram, and, you know, you can save that, how do you say it, like, you know that, okay, I can have this online, and so I don't need to just buy, right? And I think the more people see, the more it becomes maybe common, then I think more people like my mom, you know, or my aunties will also start understanding, or perhaps embracing it. But like Gen Z, Generation Alpha, I feel like, especially Gen Alpha, they've been like, they're already living in the metaverse, kind of, you know.
So crazy.
So
crazy.
Yeah, so I could imagine when they get to our age, I'm sure like this idea of digitalizing things is gonna even get more innovative, right? And they're gonna find even better ways to solve these type of problems. But I'm also curious to know, what do you think, like, how do you feel about like elite fashion brands building in the metaverse and embracing digital fashion? Do you think it should be a thing for only native Web3 fashion brands?
I've been up and down on this quite a bit. But I have stuck and will continue to stick with the view that I have that the reason I love the metaverse and am so excited about the metaverse is that you it's a place where you are going to be able to go and be anyone you want to be, whoever you want to be, whatever you want to be, look however you want to look. And I think that anybody or any entity that is willing to put creativity and the creators and the consumers first are going to make it really big. I don't think that you can necessarily limit anybody from coming in or out of the metaverse or building into them. And I think that they are going to be really good at collaborative efforts as well in the future for rising up, smaller individual artists. I think maybe the price points will maybe be a little cheaper than they are IRL because you're not getting the luxury goods, like the physical luxury goods. But I mean, everyone would love to own, a designer item. It just makes you feel good. My mom, she got, I think it was back in 2016, she got her first like designer purse, and it was a Michael Kors, and she was just so excited. It made her glow for like probably the next like 3 years because she was so excited about it. So I think that they're welcome in the metaverse as long as the people that helped build the foundation of it don't just get swept under the rug or lost or forgotten whenever stuff starts really popping off, if that makes sense. Like kind of like the market in real world today, you've got all these, I'll use Walmart, for example. I don't know, but over here, you'll have all these small rural towns. So think of that as like a small community within the metaverse. And they'll have 1 or 2 grocery stores in these small towns. And these small towns, they do really good with just these 2 grocery stores. Everyone there supporting this family. And then everyone works hand in hand out in small rural communities. Then you'll have a Walmart move into one of these small communities. And the Walmart will wipe out the 2 grocery stores. And then sometimes the case is that the things that you'll buy at Walmart are more expensive than that they were at the grocery stores that were locally owned. So that is one of my concerns, but I think that in the metaverse, I think people are going to be more going with the creators than they are the elite fashion brands, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that I like that you said, like everyone is kind of welcome, and I think as long as everyone kind of maintains the Web3 ethos, it's like, it's not just about the products, but the community, right? And, and most of the time, like I see like these emerging technologies, they're here to like solve, I guess like enhance human experience. And so I think that if the intention is about, okay, I'm just gonna dive in because I see this is where everything is happening and money, or gaining more and more, then I'm not sure, but if I think like digital fashion, I think whenever people think about digital fashion, they just think about this possibility of like the ethical side of fashion. Again, like we spoke about fast fashion and how it could impact that. And and so I think that for instance, I know that some of these like luxury brands, they're even how do you say, they're hiring like chief metaverse officers, and so I'm guessing like they are involving people who have an understanding of Web3, who have an understanding of the space. So in that sense, it's okay, because in the end, it's just, we want to make the world a better place, right? And so if you're going to hop on and you're going to contribute with the right intention, then why not, And I think now I'm also like curious to know your favorite projects and collaborations. Like, what are you working on that you're so excited about, and what keeps you going in Web3?
First thing, while I'm working on MIDWEST MISFIT, he's always an ever evolving project. I started so many different things with him, and then I was like, okay, well, now's not the time for this. So let me, maybe jump over here and start building this, and jump over here and start building this. Other than Misfit, Restless, which is led by Charlie Cohen, is a project I'm working on. It's so excited for this project. Like, it's just like every day I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's today gonna be like? What's today gonna be like? And they've been popping out all the little teasers for it and everything, and I'm so excited. I don't want to give out like too much. I don't want to like mess anything up or spoil or anything, but it's a really cool project. It is a really cool project. It's gonna be one of a kind, in my opinion, and it's gonna do a lot of people a lot of good. It's gonna do a lot of creators a lot of good. And I think it's gonna do a lot for people's mental health and their identities. It's going to be able to allow you to go in somewhere and not have to worry about like, oh, well, what's this person think? Okay, I can just go in there and I'm restless, so I can just, you know what I mean? Like, you don't. So I think that's going to be really cool. I'm working on a project / kind of DAO that's it's off the ground, still being worked though. It's called, I don't even know if I should give it. Yeah, it's up. Audio. It's called Audio. And I'm building a thing for it in Unreal right now, which is going to be really cool. Those, I think, right now have been kind of just like taking a huge, well, I don't know if you'd consider this a project or not, but I've been playing a lot with the Midjourney app, or like the Midjourney photo, like the image generator, basically. And so I've been playing with that and tinkering around with that, seeing how I could do some type of project with things that it creates. So if you could see my desk right now, it looks a lot better than what I've said I'm working on. I got papers everywhere and everything, but yeah, that's what I'm working on. But Restless he's MIDWEST MISFIT and Restless. Those are my two projects that I'm just like so unbelievably excited about. It's just gonna be so exciting.
Oh, you got me excited as well. And
yeah, you'll have to
yeah, we have to, like, we have to let our community know where to find you, on your social platforms, because I'm sure they would like to, follow, to check out, and just to, see where all your projects go, and when it's like fully like released and it's out there and people can actually interact and, get into it. So where can we find you? Online?
You can find me on Twitter at MIDWEST_Misfit, and you can find me on Instagram at MIDWESTMisfit.eth, and that's it. Those are the only two. My website, MIDWESTMisfit.com.
Amazing. And we will have all of that in the description below. But before I let you go, I want to know what keeps you going in Web3.
I've always been probably overly independent, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's not always a good thing. I've always been determined. I've always had a strong will to keep fighting for whatever it is that I think is right. I've always been around determined people. That's just kind of how we're raised out here, I guess. Like, if it don't work this way, okay, I'll try again a different way. I'm just gonna keep going and going. Nothing's gonna like stop me. I know what I want to happen in my life. I know that it is possible. Whether or not it could happen in the time frame I'd like it to happen, that's up to the stars and all that. But what keeps me going is just, I know there's something to be built there. I know that it's the way to give. So I gotta be careful saying this because I get teary-eyed, but it's a way for other people to have an escape that I didn't have, that I needed when at certain times I needed an escape from real life. And this is going to be something that's going to be able to help people just like that. And I know that there's not just a few of them. There's a lot of people like that. And even people you see on the street every day just got a big old happy smile on their face, but you never know, deep down inside they could just want to go somewhere and be someone else. So that's what keeps me going.
Well said. I think I cannot say anything else after this. I think this was a fabulous episode. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for sharing your, your story. And I believe that people in your community will be so inspired, watching and knowing that they can also do it, and yeah, and I thank you for your time. And
Thank you so much for having me.
yes.
I was so excited to do it today. I had everything like all set up.
Amazing. Thank you, Midwest. And thank you all so much for being a part of today's forum. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. We will have all our links in the description below, as well as Midwest links as well. You can also join our Discord, and we will have the links below as well. And thank you again. We will see you in the next episode.